Good evening. The time is 6 p.m. 11 rise and join for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record show that Trustee Van Hefty is excused for this evening. He has a work engagement that he cannot miss. Otherwise, the rest of the board is all in attendance. Is there any correspondence, communications from board or staff? Hearing of none. You have the minutes of the December 17th meeting before you. What's your pleasure?
Draft 2.
Draft 2.
Yeah, there was a repeated paragraph. And
Draft,
then the public,
draft 2 is for the February one. I'm talking about we still have the December 17th meeting, correct? So do you have the minutes of the December 17th meeting? What is your pleasure? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 17th, 2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing of none. We need to open that. Okay. Oh, you got it.
I hope it worked, Harry.
It works. Let the record show that there are 6 ayes and 1 excused. Now you have the minutes from the second draft for the February 25th minutes. What's your pleasure? Trustee Lancaster?
Actually, I'm gonna make a motion to table the approval of these minutes because I had also made comments under correspondence and communication from board and staff, and it's just trustee Lancaster commented.
Draft 2 is right in front of me.
We got draft 2. It's still missing, and the recording needs to be reviewed to have those comments be correct.
So is your motion to table the minutes?
Correct.
Where's the motion to table? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, we need to refresh. Vicki, you ready for us?
Yeah, I'm trying to clear everybody's votes from the last one. Following the directions that they gave me, and it is not. It's the
Technical difficulties. We're coming.
it's whenever there's a second. Second motion under the same item. It doesn't want to let me do it. I was gonna say,
Just do a roll call vote.
yeah.
Okay, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right, let the record show the motion has passed with 6 ayes and 1 excused. There we go. We made it. Very good. All right. We're going to public hearing now. Ted? Public hearing regarding the Park Fire Police impact fees. Ted, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, there's a document later on the agenda. Last month, the elders was here and presented the changes. So at this point, I'll wait till we get to the actual agenda item to talk more about it. But if there's anybody that's wishing to be heard on this, now that you can.
But we need a motion going to public hearing, correct?
Yeah.
Minimal.
So is there a motion to go into our public hearing?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to go into public hearing regarding the park fire police impact fees update.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Baldwin. Any discussion? Vote your ballot. You got us all, Vicki?
Trustee Brentmeyer.
I got it, but on your voting settle. Oh, there we go.
We want the record show that the motion has passed with 6 ayes and 1 excused. Chad, you want to repeat what you just said then for the public hearing?
Well, if there's anybody wishing to be heard in this item, they can come forward and we'll take their comments.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak on the fire park and police impact fees.
Can't say it 2 times.
Is anyone interested in speaking about the impact fees? One more time, is there anyone interested in speaking on the impact fees? Hearing of none, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Is
Motion to close the public hearing.
there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Vote your ballot. Almost.
It's not gonna clear the votes from the first from opening. You'll have to do a roll call. It doesn't
Right.
clear.
All right,
Mine came up, I'm voting.
yours,
Did everybody get
no,
eyes in already?
no, minus roll call. Aye.
I,
Aye.
I.
All right, let the record show the motion is passed with 6 ayes and 1 excused. Very good. Public comments, and now Andy, I believe you wanted to.
Just wanted to, I don't know the microphone, but if there's room here in during since election season, absentee balloting is going on at this location. And so there is a prohibition for electioneering, which constitutes statements pro or against any candidate or ballot issue. So I do respectfully request that such issues, to the extent possible, be avoided during public comment tonight.
Okay, thank you, Andy. First on the list, Drew Van Aspen, did you want to speak, Drew?
Yep.
Okay. I just need your name and address.
Hi, my name's Drew Van Aston at N9132 Brenda Drive. I just wanted to acknowledge the open house on March 20th. I did attend and I really didn't know what to expect, but I did consider it to be a good success. And I think separating the maps in different areas of the room allowed for interactive discussions. So I made it a goal of mine to have conversations with as many people as possible when I was there, and my interactions did not disappoint. People in the village want their voices heard. And I think this event, the survey and past survey results are great, like a great foundation to provide the public an engaging way to be heard and to base decisions around. So I understand setting up events like this can take a bit of time to organize. But I would suggest the village board to consider maybe a similar open house, maybe every 9 months or 1 year increments, not just focusing on the comprehensive plan, but more in a holistic manner. It's just the engagement is something that really stood out to me and was really positive in that front. So I also wanted to recognize, I'm not sure who exactly organized the whole event, but a shout out to whoever worked on it in its entirety. So, yeah.
Manager Pelchek, and all the credit for setting that up. Thank you, Chad.
Since I am here, I did want to briefly mention that Trustee Lancaster did mention that I do support potentially a meeting with the Plan Commission and the Village Board as a group. Just make sure we're all on the same page. Everyone knows just general items, just to talk at least to get familiar with everybody, since we didn't really talk much. Sorry. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Drew. Greg Tomsek? Do you want to come up, Greg? We need your name and it's here.
I'm not exactly clear on protocol here.
Just give us your name and your address, so it's.
My name is Greg Tomasek, resident of Village of Harrison at N9143 Mountain Ash Lane in the Cottonwood Creek 3 subdivision. I am here representing 5 residents on the west side of Mountain Ash Lane. We are requesting that the village design and install concrete ditch pans in the bottom of the ditch in this area to aid in the sump pump water that is currently pooling in that area. This situation was made worse with the road improvement project that was completed in the fall of 2023, when the culverts were adjusted and the ditches were revised in some way. Since then, our ditches continue to hold water year round due to the constant running of our sump pumps. This is a safety concern. One of our residents has broken their wrist already as a result of trying to maintain the ditch, and subsequently, we are asking for a limited scope project to include the 5 homes on the west side of that street to address the problem. In a prior discussion, we learned that the elevation is fairly at standard in terms of slope. It just meets the standard. We're of the understanding that we were going to receive storm sewers when this project was completed. That project was approved and was in the budget and was removed without our knowledge. I don't know really what else to say. Again, we'd like to address the safety concern of the standing water. We really don't have a safe and effective way to maintain those ditches because of the cooling of the water. It's just creating a swamp and standing water. It's smelly and it's just not safe.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you.
And then Lanny Randall.
Evening. My name is Lainey Randall. My address is W5574 Collins Street. I live in the village of Harrison. My comments this evening are in regards to the lack of accountability, the lack of transparency, and the lack of understanding of our board about the issues that Harrison is experiencing with the influx of new home development, new projects coming in, and a lack of infrastructure being addressed. I understand that there are issues that are occurring that's anywhere across the board in any sort of governmental capacity. But what I don't understand is the reasoning behind it. I don't understand the animosity that I have seen, I have experienced, and I have heard from our board members. This is unacceptable behavior from our elected officials. It is very disappointing. I have come from a very large metropolitan community in the state of Florida and moved to this community 15 years ago in the hopes that I would come to a community where everybody's voices would be heard. And quite frankly, madam, I do not believe that is true. I believe that when you are elected, that your constituents are who you work for, not for yourselves. I believe that when your constituents have problems, issues, or anything that concerns them, that they should be and should demand that we be listened to. And frankly, we have not been. It is wrong. You work for us. We don't work for you. I am angry. I feel like my taxes have gone up and I don't see the benefit of them. I see properties being developed and I see my road, Collins Street, Handle Drive, Poppensprigger, where people do 50 miles an hour down a 25-mile-an-hour road. And what do I get told? Nothing can be done. Scott lobbied for and put in the 25-mile-an-hour signs, and that works to a certain extent. But we get told that we're not important in my neighborhood. Not true. I heard the gentleman from a moment ago. Money was allocated into the budget and that it was removed. Why? Was there a reasoning behind it? It's a rhetorical question. Closed sessions all the time. I did the research. I know the reasons why closed sessions should be occurring, but I can guarantee you that it isn't always about something legal dealing with personnel issues. And that's about 75% of the time for those closed session meetings. The behavior that I have seen and heard is unbecoming. That is why I'm here today. I am tired of seeing it, hearing it, reading about it, talking to people in my workplace that live in my neighborhood, that come into my workplace, that recognize my name and tell me, "You're right, Lainey." I'm not a confrontational person, but by God, I will be if I don't see the things that many people in the village believe are wrong, be addressed and changed, because we demand change. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
We have no one else signed up to speak. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? We're ready to move on. All right, thank you. All right, Darlene, you love this part. You love this part. So stand up, my dear. Stand up, my dear. Darlene, this is your last meeting here. You get to hold that. Oh, good. So, whereas the Village of Harrison is governed by a village board composed of 6 trustees and a village president, and whereas these elected officials have the highest responsibility in the tradition of American democracy, they represent the will of the people, and whereas these elected officials set the policy for the village, lend direction to the village staff, and confront all major issues facing the community, and whereas the duties and the responsibilities of these elected officials require dedication by individuals who hold them substantial commitments of time, a love of public service, a desire for justice, and a passion for the village. And whereas the flourishing state of the community and its high quality of life are dependent upon residents who take the time to hold these offices and execute their duties. And whereas Darlene Bartline held the office of trustee on the village board for the Village of Harrison and commission member of Waverly Sanitary District Board for the town of Harrison from 2012 to 2025. Therefore, we on behalf of the village board and the Village of Harrison issue this proclamation of commendation. I can't say this. Commendation. That's what you get for telling you that all recognition of the public service by Darlene Bartline by serving on the village board for the Village of Harrison. The village board of the Village of Harrison encourages all citizens of this great community to show recognition and support to Darlene in appreciation for her service to the people. So thank God. Oh. I'll have to, yep. Oh, this is in recognition of your time. And on the back, it says Waverly Board and Waverly Sanitary District Commission, 2012 to 2021. Thank you very much. So stand up. We got to stand up one more time. Yeah, you can.
I know,
Fine.
we're doing. Everybody stand.
Everybody stand.
We all standing good? Yes, don't chill together. And I'll give it, I'm sure nice and riches. Thank you.
There's no, that's not. Thank you guys very much. Thank you. Thank you, Robin. I'm all embarrassed. Okay. So, moving on. We have reports. We have the fire and rescue report. What is your pleasure? Are there any comments or questions?
Jared isn't here, he's on vacation, if there is any comments, I'd be happy to. Rest now.
Hearing none, we'll move on. We have the Calumet County Sheriff's report. Any questions or comments? Scott?
Yeah, I really appreciate the breakdown on the streets and, breakdown between Harrison and County. I appreciate that. I do have a question. I do see more citations than normal. Is that correct?
It's just sort of good.
It's just sorted that way? I just was curious.
There's she checks, it's about the same percentage.
It's certainly the same list that's on the newspaper, just yeah.
Okay. I guess we'll get next month's report and we'll see, we'll compare, see if it's we're getting better with warnings and citations.
We got
I don't mean to put you on.
we got a little over 2 pages of warnings and page of tickets.
Is there a way for the public to do that?
It's in the board packet, as we posted it online.
Any other questions or comments? Matt?
Just one quick comment, again, whatever you can do to get into some of these side streets, I know you can't be everywhere at once, but, whatever can be done there, so, thank.
Any other questions or comments? All right, moving on. We have the village manager report. Any questions or comments? Hearing of none. We have the zoning comments. Any questions or comments? No. All right, we have the finance director's report. Any questions or comments? Hearing of none, we will move on. We have the budget report. Any questions or comments? Hearing of none. Going once, going twice. All right, moving on. Parks and trails. Any questions or comments? What works? Questions or comments?
I do have a question. A gentleman asked me to mention Muncie and Dusty. There's a culvert that has a drain pan that's heaved up on both sides, so it's the house to the north and to the east. And so when I talked to the gentleman, you could see that where the culverts are, it's recessed down pretty bad, and the ditch or the drain pans are actually lifted up, and it's pretty hard for the water to get in there. So I can give you some information later, but I'd like someone to check that out.
Any other questions or comments on Public Works? All right, moving on to the clerk report. Any questions or comments? Hearing of none.
Just
Harrison,
real quick, I got a question. So how many people have actually, as of today, voted?
I don't know the exact number as of the end of today. I know yesterday we were around 1480. So.
any other questions or comments?
About 77% are returned.
Okay, Harrison Utilities, any questions or comments? Yeah,
Each question for Manager Belichick, just wondering, do you have a timetable yet on the whole cost recovery situation with sewer connection fees and all that? I was just looking through some materials last night. I know we're kind of coming up on a year when we originally started talking about all that, and I know there's no larger projects, so I understand the why, but just wondering.
Yeah, the Ellers is working on it, and I believe that if April or maybe would be with a presentation of where they're at and some recommendations on things for the board to consider. All right, thank you.
any other questions or comments? Okay, we are ready to approve bills and claims. Is there a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve bills and claims.
Is there a second? I'll second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, vote your ballot. Let the record show the motion has passed with 6 ayes and 1 excused. And we have no old business tonight, correct? All right. Moving on to new business, we have the site plan review for the new Harrison Fire Station. So Chad, did you want to speak to that?
Sure, so the planning commission is recommending approval of this. They talked in depth with the contractor, the designer on and the circulation of the parking lot and servicing future fire trucks and stuff. So you can see in your packet that there is site plans in there for the new fire station at the corner of County End and Manitowoc Road. As part of the Harrison Commerce plat, as well as the floor plan and some renderings of where the design is today. The planning commission did recommend approval of it with the conditions that are listed, so the staff is recommending that the board consider the same.
I'll make that motion to approve the site plan for the new Harrison Fire Station on West 5662 Manitowoc Road as printed and circulated.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Julie.
Under discussion, just one comment. So just so the board is aware, the first condition in the packet is that the Manitowoc Road is an access restricted roadway. And obviously the fire trucks are going to be coming off of Manitowoc Road. McMahon did design for Manitowoc Road in that section to be upgraded in the future to handle that. However, at this point, we're going to work with department to hopefully restrict some of that backing activity on the road, so we don't rip up the whole road, but we understand there may be need for that. So as part of this motion, we're basically granting ourselves the right to be able to use Manitowoc Road for a driveway because the days for the trucks actually come out onto Manitowoc.
Any other questions or comments? Ready for the motion?
I made the motion.
Yes, the motion. There's motion, Carson.
I do have a question.
All right,
Does that need to be specifically in the motion, because it's a condition, but to make sure that that's clear, and when we have a question later?
I think if you prove it with the conditions, we'll be fine.
Okay.
all right, ready to vote your ballot? Vote your ballot. It should be open. It is open. Let the record show the motion to approve has passed with 6 ayes and 1 excused. Moving on to discussion regarding drainage issues on Mountain Ash Lane in the Cottonwood Estates. Chad, would you like to speak to
So we had a meeting with Greg and another neighbor last week, Friday, and 2 trustees, Allison and Scott, and talked about this. issue, and at the time, the staff, the request from the neighbors was to install these concrete ditch pans. Basically that the village would design and install them. There is some challenges with this related to the village's MS4 stormwater permit and the use of a ditch to allow this seepage of water over a slower time frame versus trying to push it downstream. There, at this point, there's some, I think the two options that we left the meeting with was that the village would design and install these, or that the village would design them and give the residents in that neighborhood that are requesting this the specifics on where to purchase these and how to install them, and let them install them. So we're not setting a precedent for installing these ditch pans in this area. But if that's the direction that the board would like to take, at least they would get a design and the specs on the ditch pans, and then it'd be up to them to install them. So at this point, I think there's been dialogue back and forth on how to handle this. I don't think putting in a storm sewer, as we've talked in the past, is the right answer, given that we're just correcting a problem here and we're not dealing with it upstream when there's going to continue to be water from these sump pumps coming into this area. So there's no easy solution, let's just put it that way. The ditch pans may work, they may not. But I think other than letting the water seep away on its own, like a ditch is designed to handle, there's really no good recommendations. And the village engineers here, if there's any additional questions.
Carolyn?
I just want to say, I would talk it over with the road crew, because we have some across the street from us and they don't work because if you don't keep them cleaned out, they plug up the same thing. And they said most people don't want to clean them out. They don't feel it's their responsibility. So it didn't help at all across the road. So I'm just saying I would talk to Jeff and then first.
Jeff was part of this meeting and we discussed that, and that's his concern. The other concern is, and that's why having the owners install them and maintain them under some agreement with the village seemed to make the most sense. Because otherwise they're out maintaining these things after every freeze thaw, because they start tilting and changing heights and getting full of debris and all of that kind of stuff. So that was all talked about in this meeting as well.
And Julie?
Thank you. So is there a way to negotiate this without board involvement, where you and the residents, I know you guys have met already, but is there something, do we need to be involved, I guess is what I'd say, to make the final decision on, or is it something that can just be amicably worked through with the resident and the village staff?
Well, the reason that it's back before you is because last year in the fall, when we brought the survey results that we did, when we looked at putting in a storm sewer system, at that point, the board had denied that and requested that, that nothing was going to be done out there. So I think at this point, I don't know that staff has the direction to be able to put time and energy and hire the engineer to design a recommendation without some support of the board.
Understood. And then my second question has to do with, has this happened before in other neighborhoods where we face this problem? And if it has, what have we done about it? Or is this the first time?
Well, there is other areas where this has happened. I mean, other people have ditches. I think the challenge here, and I know I've gotten a question from a few trustees, are we going to have the same problem with the projects we're going to bid today? I think the difference here is that in the projects that we're awarding today for Hagen Heights and Cedar Ridge is that we're replacing all of the culverts and resetting them all. I think what happened, is that correct, on this project? There was some that were new and some that were existing, and we
didn't ditch the entire project either. We just ditched certain areas that were determined to be out of compliance as far as slope is concerned. So there were certain ditches that were graded, certain culverts that were replaced. It wasn't a full grading project like the one that we're doing this year.
Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, so the project ended at the tail end where we're asking to start, so it'd be the fifth house or the final house. And from there on down, there are concrete pavers that lead to a drain and a culvert that you have to walk the road. So we are the last 5 houses for the whole subdivision to drain to. Storm sewers were immediately, or were approved on the roads immediately to our west along Kernan. They were also approved to the north of us on the Hazelnut. So we're not asking that all of Cottonwood Creek subdivision have storm sewers. We're just asking that these last 5 houses that are collecting all this water upstream from us, that we give us a safe way to maintain it. Otherwise, we're stuck with the swamp in front of our house.
Matt,
So I do believe that there needs to be some kind of a solution here. But I'm actually gonna make a motion to table and send this back to staff for more information. Because we have to spend money and there's no estimates in here. So, really, we need to have the information to know, okay, what's the engineering that it costs? What's the amount the homeowners would be expected to pay if we go with that option? If the village does it all, what's the cost? And for that, we can make an educated decision on this. I do, but, and also the other question with that additional information, why I'm also making this motion to table. I know in here, it indicates there is these concrete paver cans. In the next section over up to these, did the village pay for those or did the homeowners? So again, we make sure we're applying things fairly to all, and that's important.
So
Just for clarity, is that a motion to table to the
Yes,
next?
it is. Motion to table the next meeting.
was there a second?
I'm second.
I'll second, you get a second by Mike. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Vote ballot. And Vicky was there. All right, vote ballot. Did you get everybody? Just the huge keep up there one. Okay, let the record show the motion to table has been approved with the 6 ayes and 1 excuse. So we'll bring you back more information. Okay, Matt?
And Chad, you'll be in contact with the homeowner.
Yeah,
I said, we was to keep him in the loop of what's going on.
Yeah.
But we're not forgetting about it, just we need to have all the information.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, very good. Next up is to repeal and recreate chapter 2 of the Harrison Municipal Code. Chad, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, so this item, I would ask that it would be tabled until the April meeting. It's really there because there's a lot of new information in this section, particularly related to adding some language about ethics code and conflict of interest. Some of the planning commission stuff. So what we're looking for is that the board will take some time to read through chapter 2. Provide any comments you might have to me so that we can come back in April and have addressed all the comments that we received with the board and spend some time just going through this. So at this point, I would look for a motion to table.
Motion table.
Motion by Matt. Second by Darlene to table. Any discussion? Vote your ballot. Stop. Can you hit submit? Thank you. And the motion to table is approved with 6 ayes and 1 excused. All right, proposed amendment to the Village of Harrison parking regulations, Chad.
So a group of us, the internal and the sheriff's department, DW and Clyder, met this was a future agenda item that the board had put on, I believe, in January or February. We met and discussed, actually reviewed surrounding communities, and in the memo that I provided, there's information related to Sherwood, Nash, Dover, William, Peconic, Grand Chute, and Buchanan, what they do for winter parking. The recommendation that came out of this group is that they feel we should modify the ordinance to restrict parking on all village streets from November 1st to May 1st. And the rest of the year parking would be allowed, and that we would keep the current hours during that November 1st to May 1st of 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. so that the plows can get out there and clear the area. So what we're recommending at this point is to get the motion to support this, but before we actually make it an ordinance, we would like to do some citizen input, so we would recommend tabling as well to the April meeting, and we will, in the meantime, engage with the public to make sure there's no issues with that. I can't imagine there are, because people have requested money in the Park and Village streets in the summer. But anyway, we thought we would final decision was it.
So my only question would be, is this residential parking or businesses? That we know we have some issues with businesses parking
It
outside.
would be strictly the residential. Yes.
Thank you.
Matt?
It doesn't like the idea of getting public input, maybe you can do a simple poll or something, the only thing I think of some kind of something with vehicle type to make sure that semis are not allowed to park on residential streets overnight.
I think our ordinance already addresses that.
We have a check.
I don't think they're allowed to even go down, are they? I don't think they should go down.
Is there a motion to,
Yeah, I'll motion to table it till next
well,
month.
we need a motion to support the proposed change and then table, so.
Well, I don't think you should table it, because I don't want to say I support this or I get the feedback from the community, you know?
Yeah, I would say that if you're good with it, that we'll lay it over for 1 month, so table it and then we can bring it back.
All right.
So I made that
Right,
motion.
Julie?
Yeah, what's the question? How will you get public input? What, by what means? To make sure that we get.
Well, in a month, and the fact that we don't have a newsletter going out is probably gonna have to just be on our website and social media and probably be some type of poll that people can take on Facebook.
Okay, and my only concern is, and I learned this at the plan, the commission, the meeting that they had on the comp plan, so many people don't have access to internet, so I know we want to do it cost effectively, but I just wonder if there's a way to reach more people other than just down. So
The only other way to reach everybody would be to send another postcard out, and we'll wait till the next newsletter, which we could do. And get it in the newsletter.
because
That's
this
about
$14,000. This won't
It's
take
about
effect.
$4,000 to send postcards to our residents.
That's kind of crazy.
Would it be possible to put a QR code at the polling booths when people are leaving? That'll bring them right to the
A lot of those people don't have phones.
Can you just have
We'll
a print?
have all-
We could have a paper copy.
You just have a paper copy and that way just let them know that they can either go be online for them to do something, or if they don't, they can have a paper copy up here, so you know.
Sure.
You know,
We'll figure out something out for this. Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
So I made that motion to table till next month.
The motion, is there a second? Mike seconded it. Okay, motion by Scott, second by Mike to table. Which ballot? And the motion is passed with 6 ayes and 1 excuse. Next up is ordinance B 25-06, amending chapter 6, section 6-3, keeping of fowls. Chad.
So this one, we're not requesting we're not gonna do a public engagement process because we already have the ordinance that allows for 4, and we're just increasing the recommendations to increase to 6 chickens, dogs, and then expand the size of the enclosure to be more in line with surrounding communities. So likewise, we pulled Harrison, Buchanan, Fox Crossing, Greenville, Grand Chute, Menasha, Appleton, Kaukauna, and Calumet County, and you can see from the list, Buchanan is the only one that allows 8, otherwise it's majority 6 tolls in those communities, and the sizes are in the range, so we're recommending 6 raising it to 6 chickens or doves, and the inside coop to 30 square feet from our current 25, and no more than 60 square feet for a chicken run as part of that inside coop. And this is based off of standards that are in the backyard chicken coop, that they need 3 square feet per chicken. So staff is recommending approval because we've gotten some requests with the current egg prices to allow for people to have more chickens.
I'll make a motion to approve the amending ordinance, chapter 6, section 6.3, keeping the fowl as printed and circulated.
I'll second.
Second by Julie. Any further discussion? Mike?
Yeah.
This is just urban area, correct?
Yes, it's very much.
We can have as many chickens as you want.
I gotta go home and tell my wife. She only have 6 chickens. Only sprung up.
We have just requirements in the general gate and the rural residential, yeah, this is only in those other districts.
And they still can't have.
Right, that is correct.
Well, I just know people get mad about roosters.
But your roosters.
I don't have any anymore, but yeah, I used to.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, vote your ballot. Let the record show the motion is passed with 6 ayes and 1 excuse. Very good. All right. Up to award of the bids for the emergency generator at the village hall. Chad.
So we received 3 bids on this project. The low bid is with Moe DOE Power Systems out of Appleton at $219,770. So we are recommending approval. This was budgeted in the capital improvement plan as well as the village budget. And that funding for this would be allocated from the borrowings that we invested.
Did you say 219 or 213? It's
It should be 213,770.
Okay,
So
okay.
I did say 219.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Make a motion to award the contract to DOE Power and Systems LLC in the amount of $213,770.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mike.
Under discussion, I just want to say that, it seems like a lot of money. However, last week in that snowstorm, we had a power surge here again. When we lost a switch in our IT panel. Last time when we had a power surge out here, last spring in that ice storm, we lost the fire protection system. So by having a generator, we can get on a constant electric supply and hopefully minimize those surges that are taken out of our equipment.
Any other questions or comments? Vote your ballot. Let the record show the motion is passed with 6 ayes and 1 excused. Next up is the award of bids to Northeast Asphalt for the 2025 asphalt resurfacing projects. Chad?
So the low bid is Northeast Asphalt at $1,712,000. You can see that we had borrowed and budgeted for a project of 2.3 roughly million. So we have a good amount of savings that has been gathered by this project. So we're recommending approval of this bid. I will say that on the memo, there is a chart that talks about the funding and where it's being allocated at the end of this. We'll have about 752,000. There is 200,000 being applied to the next agenda item related to the Harrison Commerce Park, but in the end, Alyssa and I are estimating about 450,000 of savings, and we're thinking that that will probably get applied towards the next borrowing that we do for the fire station, the DPW, so we don't have to borrow as much for that.
I make that motion to award the bids for Northeast Asphalt for the 2025 asphalt resurfacing projects to Northeast Asphalt for $1,712,567.53 as printed and circulated.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mike. Any discussion? Matt?
Just one comment, I would actually encourage to see if there's other roads that should be added. If you have good bid prices here, within the amounts that we can add supplements without having to rebid. Especially knowing the borrowing this summer will be longer term borrowing of 20 years versus the shorter term borrowing, so. Just depending there.
We can look at that. I think it's gonna come down to a staffing time. Sure. We have all these renovation projects and street projects going on, so if we can make it work, we'll look at.
Yeah, fair enough.
Any other questions or comments? Which ballot? And let the record show the motion is passed with 6 ayes and 1 excused. Next, to award the bids to Donald Hepison Sons for the Harrison Commerce Park Utility Street and stormwater pond construction. Chad.
So you can see from this project, we received 5 bids ranging from 1.2 million up to 1.5 million. There was 2 supplemental bid items. The first supplemental bid item was to finish the roadway between the new Commerce Drive and Manitowoc Road. We have bid that as an alternative in case there was not enough funding to get that done. The second supplemental bid was to place these asphalt screenings that are out there that were moved from the former Darboy Club site to use them into the roadway and use them for compaction and those kinds of things. So with the 2 supplemental bid items and the low bid, we're recommending approval of the low bid for the $1,316,945.25. The village borrowed $1 million for this in 2024. The difference is at $316,000, and it would come from the savings of those street resurfacing and be quoted as such with refunded through the TIDing.
Any questions or comments? Is there a
I
motion?
should preface that we need to get this done to get water and sewer to the new fire station.
Right.
Make a motion to approve the low bid of the $1,316,945.25 to Donald Hipperson Sons Incorporated for Harrison Commerce Park Utility, Street and Stormwater Pond Construction. As printed in the circular.
Is there a second? I'll second. Second by Darlene. Any further discussion? Which ballot? Let the record show that there are 6 ayes and 1 excused. Motion is passed. Next up is resolution V 2025-07, resolution amending the fee and penalty schedule regarding park, fire, and police impact fees. Yeah,
So you remember a couple of meetings ago, the board approved a changing of this ordinance to take the dollar values out of the actual ordinance and refer to the fee and penalty schedule. So what you have before you are the recommended changes based on the report that Ellers had done, looking at future costs related to both park, fire, and police. So at this point, a single family home on new development as part of building permit issuance, the fire impact fee would go up $7, the law enforcement would go up $15, and the park impact fee would go up $136 to fund the projects that were listed in the plan that's in your packet, as well as what Ellers had presented at the last meeting. So staff is recommending approval.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution V 2025-07. Amending fee and penalty schedule regarding park, fire, and police impact fees as printed and circulating.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Julie. Any further discussion? Hold your ballot. And let the record show, motion is passed with 6 ayes and 1 excused.
Yeah, David,
Mitch,
with one comment, now we pass this. If it's not already, can the other study be under the study on the village website, please?
For sure, yes.
Thank you.
okay. Moving on to resolution B 2025-08, authorizing the application of grant funding for construction of the old highway road trail project. Yeah,
So the village had received a grant from the DOT for the old highway road recreational project. And it's for 2027 of the roughly $905,000. We're gonna apply to the DNR for the stewardship funding for the 20% to fully fund that project. There is a grant writer that's been hired by the Community Foundation that would be leading the application with staff, but the deadline is May 1st, so we are looking for authorization to submit the application for grant funding.
any questions or comments?
Make a motion to approve resolution V 2025-08, authorizing the application for grant funding for construction of Old Highway Road Trail.
I'll second.
Second by Mike. Any further discussion, questions? Watch your ballot. And the motion has been approved with 6 ayes and 1 excused. Very good. Okay, we are looking at. We have next the key fob. Is it key fob or the future land use?
Future land use.
Future land use. Chad,
So I was just asked to add this to the agenda. I think it's a little premature to talk about this, so I would maybe recommend tabling this until the April meeting because we're still in the public engagement process. Surveys aren't due until April 14th, and then the consultant is planning on coming back at the April meeting and reviewing with the board and the planning commission comments received and kind of get some input and direction on moving forward after we receive the comments. So I don't know if the board has any discussion at this point, or if there's an interest in just tabling it until we have all the information.
Make the motion to table this, especially we have a trustee out tonight and we also know our board in April is gonna look different. So then, and these are long-term decisions, so. Frank, I might be on board, so at that point, I'll make a motion to table.
what's the second by Julie? Any discussion? All right. Watch your ballot.
Hit submit. Thank you.
My fingers are too oily.
And the motion to table has passed with 6 ayes and 1 excused. Okay, next up is the key fob system, security system for Harrison Utilities. Chad,
So right now Harrison Utilities runs off of keys. There's multiple keys, there's a master key and to manage all these keys. And it's a nightmare, so I am recommending this as a non-budgeted item, but they do have fund balance to fund it. Tech Security Systems provides the security here at Village Hall. It's gonna be the same system that's gonna be used in the new fire station. So we're recommending approval of this so that we can get them under a fob system, and that way we have a little bit more control over the security of the facility, of who's entering and coming and going and those kinds of things. So we're recommending approval of this contract for $12,277. As I said, there's one bid because we work with Tech Security Systems.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
second by Darlene. Any discussion? Watch your ballot. And let the record show the motion has been approved with 6 ayes and 1 excused. And the last thing on our agenda for tonight is discussion regarding prior closed session protocols. Chad, I think you're up.
So trustee Baldwin and Hardline requested this item to be added to the agenda, so I would turn the floor over to trustee Baldwin to kind of walk through the research that she did, and then the attorney Russ Meisel to talk about the last item related to the Lansing recuse versus the city of Manette.
I wanted to clear up some questions that I personally received from residents. As well as Ms. Randall, you mentioned this too about closed sessions. So I wanted to just clear up some of the information that that I look back at. I don't know if anybody else has this in the package or in paper, but it is in the village packet. But I can just pretty much go over this with you. I looked at the last almost 2 years, it was back to April 25th of 23. And what I wanted to know is how many closed sessions did we have out of the 34 board meetings that we had since April 23 or since April 23 and January of 2025. So 34 sessions, board meetings we had. Of those, we had 27 closed sessions. And even when I looked at this, I thought, whoa, that's a lot of closed sessions. But what it was, when I looked at the reasons, we had some litigation, and this is all in this document that you can see online, but we had litigation issues, we had personnel issues, we had a village manager who left, we had to hire an assistant village manager, an interim village manager. In that time, we hired the finance director, There were some issues about development and purchase of land. So there were a lot of different issues that are covered under state statutes 1985. And I have a copy of that, but I'm not going to pretend I'm anywhere close to knowing the law. So that's why, and our attorney can answer any questions that anybody might have. But out of the 34 sessions that we held, 34 board meetings, 27 closed sessions, they were unanimously approved, 7 of 7 board members who were, or I should say, unanimously approved by whatever board members were here. So 26 out of 27 sessions unanimously approved. So the point I wanted to make is that there wasn't any secret. We all have free will. We all have the ability to vote that we want to enter closed sessions or we don't. And in the case of that I said about our 27 sessions, 26 of those were unanimously approved by the board. The other thing that it's important to consider is that there are 7 board members typically present. I think there were a couple where one person was excused, so 6 board members. In addition, as you can see on the document that I put together, there's usually a village attorney present and there's usually staff. The only time that it might be the board members, to my recollection, and anyone can correct me if they think I'm wrong, would be as if we're talking about a sensitive personnel issue where we can't have staff or we can't have we can't have staff. But since we've started having a village attorney present at our meetings, the village attorney is here. So I guess what I would just say in conclusion is if anyone has any concerns or questions about the legitimacy of our closed sessions, ask any one of us and we would be able to tell you what happened. And it's all in the meeting minutes. That was my source, the agendas, the packets. So I have no reason to, but I can just tell you, this is the information that I produced. So it's online if you're interested in looking.
And then Andy, do you want to talk about the lawsuit?
Yeah, happy to do that. So there hasn't been any statutory change in the law recently. The function of the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court is to develop the law over time. And as the law develops, people are expected to comply with any updates provided by those courts of record. So I didn't plan, I have them all dialed up here, but I didn't plan on going through each specific exception to the open records law. If you have any questions, I can certainly answer them. But I do think in the wake of the Marinette case, what I would recommend going forward is that the first time an item is discussed, for instance, if there is a proposed agreement with a developer, or the idea that a developer might come into town and he's wanting or needing to negotiate a developer agreement, I do recommend that it be discussed the first time in open session, just to explain the circumstances, explain generally what is proposed to be done. If the board in open session wants to move it forward beyond that, in most cases, there is some negotiation that needs to be done. That negotiation, I represent a lot of municipalities, and that negotiation almost never happens between a developer sitting in a room and a board sitting where you folks are right now. What happens is the board gives some direction or some negotiation parameters to staff, and then staff goes and negotiates an agreement, and then that agreement comes back for approval. Now, to give that direction to staff, I'm dealing with one particular exception that is in times when you're not dealing with an employee issue or litigation, the most frequent reason why this board or any board closes meetings for the negotiation or bargaining exception. So my recommendation is you start an open session generally. If you need to negotiate points, then you go into closed session to talk to staff, talk amongst each other and give direction to staff to go out to a developer and negotiate an agreement. Then that should come back to open session for approval. Just to give you an idea of why you would need to go into closed session, say you're looking to purchase property from a developer, and the board says, all right, go out and get the best deal that you can, but we're going to pre-authorize you. So Chad, you have some idea what we're willing to accept. Any offer between 90 and 100,000 now. Now, if that comes out in open session, guess what the seller of land is going to demand? $100,000 in every case. But there are cases like that, and that really is what the law, the negotiation and bargaining exception is designed to address. But that, after the negotiations are done, sometimes you do need to go back into closed session, but the decision should be made, and discussion on the merit should be made in open session. And that really is what the case Marinette is all about. That we do need to separate any discussions like that into probably open session to begin with, then closed as necessary, then come back to discuss on the merits. Now, the other exceptions that are common in these files represent are for employee issues. There, it's not because you want to, it's because you have to, in many cases, discuss sensitive employment issues in closed session. And litigation, because I can't give you good advice without the other side knowing, unless we are in closed session. There are others too, to be sure, that will come up sparing, and we can address those when they do come up. I guess with that, I'd open the floor to questions.
Thank you. So I do have a couple of questions for the attorney, I guess, with this. So one of these, I'm often criticized by certain members of this board for asking too many questions, and in looking back at this is a case where I really wish I would have asked questions, because if I would have, I definitely would not have voted for some of these, knowing the content of them. Because I actually was looking at the Wisconsin Open Meetings Law Compliance Guide today. Pages 28, 29, 29 actually even uses for bargaining here the word require here, leaves the requires, use the word require in Wisconsin Stat 19.851 limits that exemption to situations in which competitive or bargaining reasons leave a governmental body with no option other than a closed meeting. So it goes along with the Court of Appeals opinion here too. So I really think we definitely have to be very careful about bargaining. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not voting for anything with developments anymore in closed session, because it's just, the public deserves better in seeing some of this. The other piece of some of this where I assume that we needed to do some of these is the village president along with staff sets the agenda. So if they're on the agenda, I thought that was part of why they were there. And then my third comment on this, and where my question for the village attorney comes into play, is according to 19.85 subsection 1 is, and it's long, so I'm just going to read the sentence that applies to my question here. No motion to convene in closed session may be adopted unless the chief presiding officer announces to those present at the meeting at which such motion is made the nature of the business to be considered at such closed session and the specific exemption or exemptions under this subsection by which such closed session is claimed to be authorized. Such announcement shall become part of the record of the meeting. Shall there. I went back, glad you made the list, Trustee Baldwin, and some of this is actually on even audio, not even video on the website, but I made an open records request for said audio, and I reviewed every single one of these. There's a couple that there's no recording that exists, so those I could not verify. There's 2 or 3 to that. For some reason, there's no recording. I don't know why. I think we were just doing closed session that night, so we did open session and immediately went to close, so we just never started recording for whatever reason. I don't know. But otherwise, there are dozens and dozens of these, and not one of these was that read. Every single one of them just said, "Oh, we ready, guys, to go into closed session?" And it was, "Oh, who's making the motion to go to closed session?" Made the motion, made the second, and voted. None of it was ever read. So, and I only reference, I guess, the list you put together. I could have certainly went back even further, but the statute of limitations for open meetings violations is 2 years, and your list is just about 2 years. So I'm really wondering is every one of these closed sessions an open meetings violation, and what do we need to do to correct? Because it wasn't read.
There's nothing, okay. So the verbiage that I do actually recommend be read verbatim, and I've seen chair. They read it fast because it's long, but it's the exact verbiage that shows up on your agenda. And best practice would be to read that going forward. I don't know that I agree that everything that's been done has been invalid for it. In fact, nothing is invalid until the court says it's invalid, so you don't have to do anything. You don't have to worry about it unless there's a lawsuit and you address it. But like many ordinances, we do not read verbatim everything in the ordinance or resolution. It's adopted by reference. I move to approve ordinance blank. And it comes in by, now, in wake of Marinette, and based upon what I do in other municipalities and what I recommend, I do recommend going forward that that verbiage that appears on the agenda be read. One other thing, whether or not you go into closed session, if there is any likely possibility that you might want to go into closed session, you need to have that verbiage on the agenda. But just because it's on the agenda doesn't mean you have to go into closed session. So there will be cases where the chief presiding officer or the clerk puts that language on the agenda, which you need, because without it, we foreclose the possibility that you can go into closed session. But that's a really part of what you ought to be discussing in open session before you go into closed session. Before anybody reads that verbiage, is whether it's a situation that calls for it. Because many situations won't call for it. So I appreciate Supervisor or Trustee Lancaster's sentiment that, you know, maybe he's gonna vote against it. But I don't think anybody should take offense when you see it on the agenda, because it has to be on the agenda or you never can.
Okay.
So put it on the agenda. If there's any likely possibility that you might discuss it, somebody ought to, chief presiding officer ought to read that language verbatim. Typically, staff checks with us if it's going to be a closed session item, because we not only cite the specific exception, but some clue about what will also be discussed. Going forward, you'll have more than that, because not only will you have the item read verbatim along with the exception, but you'll also have some discussion that precedes it. So folks in the audience are more likely to know why you're going into closed session. Again, this is a development of the law thing. And I think a lot of municipalities are more aggressively going to be scrutinizing the reasons for going into closed session. And I'm recommending it to all my clients.
Yeah, I just want to say that I appreciate that you brought that law forward. It did stop us from having, after we heard about that lawsuit, we did not have the closed session that was on deck on the 28th of last month or whatever it was. But I believe in transparency. I believe that if we don't have to go into closed session, we shouldn't. But I will also say that I don't believe for one moment that there was any malice intended from anyone on the board, myself included, into going into closed sessions. And I can also say that I wasn't born a politician. I ran to, give back to the community, and I will continue to learn for the rest of my time on this board, and I won't know everything. And, I guess I'm just going to say that there are so many things that I'm ignorant about, but I will continue to learn, continue to get it better. And that's all I think we can hope to achieve as human beings, just process improvement. Okay.
Scott?
So is there training and protocol that this is all gonna be given to us? I don't know, Chad or Andy, is there gonna be guidance, or is this to be more or less, again, board rules? Chad puts the agenda, the village president approves, but is there any guidance as far as training or process change where the village attorney would have to look at it and maybe have to write out the verbiage that has to be done and make sure we get those things correct? Because it does feel the same way that we're not trained enough, I think, as a staff and as a board to do this properly for what we just discussed, that we need to have clear work instructions that says, if you go to work, this is what you have to do Right, so whenever an agenda comes up and there may be that possibility, that should be scrutinized. You know, where I work, you have four eyes. Right, you got the village manager, you got the village president, you got the attorney and the board. There's your four eyes. We gotta establish that as a work instruction, because most companies, that's what they do. They have work instruction, make sure you're consistent, that you're compliant. So I would say we need to have that work instruction for properly going into closed session, four eyes.
I have, on occasion, in fact, within the last couple of months, presented to other bodies on open records law. I will tell you, I believe that you are more in tune than many other municipalities that I've presented to. In the wake of Marinette, obviously, a lot of people are improving their processes. But if that is something that you'd like to do, I can come out for a half hour and go to the entire open records law. But I will tell you also, almost every time that you have a meeting where it has been likely, I shouldn't say every time, I should say in recent years when closed session items have been on the agenda, Chad has contacted me to go through the language. So we have had input on that. Yes, the language should be read going forward.
But Marinette was a month ago, right?
Right.
So that's the reason why we're talking about this, because it just came out. So just like when Will had won the case with the transportation fee, I had asked for a legal review and you gave us that opinion and we got rid of that transportation fee because there would be a likelihood that we would get in trouble. So now that Marinette came out a month ago, we're being proactive and saying, hey, are we doing things right? And I think this is a perfect opportunity to protect ourselves, protect the taxpayers from frivolous, or I won't say frivolous, but lawsuits, right? So, and we need to comply. We need to be, I think, the leading edge of compliance when it comes to these kind of things. So, thank you.
Typically, you'd probably do that at a workshop or something, that because you're together, that's a quorum, so as to have notice, but I don't know that I'd recommend that you do it at any meeting. But feel free to coordinate that and communicate with Lynn and we'll put something together.
The other thing that I would say is, so Trustee Lancaster brought it forward about the White Saving case, and that's the reason why in the packet for the public to see, there's the memo describing what Andy kind of just talked about, so anybody can read it and kind of understand it. As Andy said, you know, Kim and I do converse on closed sessions, so going forward, I will make sure that that they're aware of, you know, what we're doing and what needs to be said. There's always an attorney here, so they can read back and forth as we go into it. And if there's any questions, we can address them at each time so that it's open and transparent.
Joe, did you have one more thing?
I just wanted to say that, just so everybody knows, none of us were trained. But we got on the board, you get voted in, and there you go.
But
Actually, you do the best you can.
ignorance of the law is not an excuse, right, Andy?
But I'm just saying, nobody was
That's
trained.
the law.
All right. Are we ready to move
And
on?
the last thing I just want to state is at the April meeting, we're considering village trustee handbook that we have worked aggressively over the last few months to try to put together for the new folks and the existing folks. So it'll be a resource that you will have to be able to refer back to if needed.
So that'll be for April?
Yes.
Okay, now, on this agenda that you guys probably picked up when you came in, there is the next section 13, which says future agenda items. And are there any future agenda items to add tonight? If you look at this list, you'll see item A is review of RS2 zoning, and you'll see initials after that for the trustees who request these items be put on the agenda. Any two trustees can request that items be put on any agenda at any time. And I, as village president, am not allowed to say no. They are allowed, if there's two trustees that ask for any agenda item, they are put on the agenda. So this statement that's been going around that I control the agenda is not a true statement. That is a collaborative effort between all of the trustees and the staff. All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there
Man has a future.
okay, what's your future agenda item?
And that is to change the review of RS2 zoning after the comp plan to instead say review of the entire zoning code after the comp plan.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, so let's, and then Vicky, you have that change then? Any other changes to be made to future agenda items?
Is that something, Chad, you were gonna work on anyway?
Well, we're doing an old update of the whole municipal code. That is a challenge. We'll have to hire somebody outside of what process we're doing, somebody that's familiar with it. So, Matt and I did have a discussion about it, and I think there's other changes that need to be made, because there's a lot of references to the old person yet. So we will work on getting that stuff updated once the comprehensive plan is adopted.
And what is our timeline for the comp plan again?
Probably May.
We're gonna get input and board
Goal would
approval.
be to the board to approve it at their May meeting. If that's not able, then we'll push it out to June.
Any other future agenda items? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Darlene, second by Julie to adjourn.
So it's not open.
Yeah.
I just want
You
to
called
make
that
note that,
already?
no, that trustee Bartling is ending her tenure with a motion.
Okay, are we
It's
there?
open.
All right, vote to motion. So record show the motion to adjourn is approved with 6 ayes and 1 excuse.
That's for sure.